Welcome back to Working Media, the podcast by marketers for marketers, pulling back the curtain on what it takes to build, scale, and fund breakthrough brands. I'm your host, Rafael Bracero. As you look at the landscape of food, beverage, and CPG right now, the biggest challenge isn't just creating a great product, it's navigating the intersection of growth, capital, and modern retail. How do you grab a buyer's attention? How do you scale on the shelf? And most importantly, how do you find the right venture partners to back your vision? On June 25th, an exclusive event is happening right here in LA at Verizon's 5G Labs in Playa Vista that addresses all of these questions, the CPG Convergence Conference. To give us a breakdown of what this event means for the industry, I am thrilled to welcome the masterminds behind the event, and they are Chirag Sagar, who is the co-founder and publishing director of Mission Matters Media. And Chirag is an entrepreneur, a personal branding expert, and co-founder of Mission Matters Media, and he basically leads all their efforts in terms of growth. He's also a proud grad of the USC Marshall School of Business and has led multiple successful ventures in the past and dedicated his career to bridging the gap between early stage companies and impactful media exposure. Our other guest is Subriana Pierce, who is co-founder of the Navigator Lighthouse Foundation. Subriana is a retail executive board member and managing partner at Navigator Sales and Marketing, and she co-founded the Navigator Lighthouse Foundation, which is a nonprofit empowering minority, women-owned, and emerging brands through retail access, education, and capital. Sabrina's career is dedicated to helping founders scale distribution and build multi-generational wealth. Sabrina Chirag, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having
Glad to
us.
be here.
I'm really
Likewise.
happy to have you here. I'm super excited to get into this today. So, Sabrina, let's start with you. So, the headline behind the event, the CPG Convergence Conference, is where growth, capital, and innovation come together. So, what was like the core catalyst behind launching the CPG Convergence Conference, and why is this conversation so critical right now to have?
Yeah, I think, for us, it was the missing link of bringing all of this together. So for 5 years, we've had the Navigator Lighthouse Foundation. And we train, we develop, we teach. Yesterday, we had the CEO of Wakefern ShopRite, which is a $21 billion company out east, come on and talk to these brands about how to do business with them. And last month we had Costco. But the number one thing that these brands tend to miss is the money. Like, so understanding how do you actually get the right investment from the right partner to then go into retail and sell. So for us personally, this was a missing piece of our foundation. And then we were able to meet Chirag at an event and started to put the pieces together of what we both saw that was needed in the industry. And so that's kind of how we came up with it. And so that's why Convergence was such a great name, because you're going to have the retailers that are there, and I know we'll talk through the agenda later, but a lot of retailers there. You're going to have the investors and venture capital and angel investors there. You've got marketing there. You've got omni-channel there, and then you've got the brands. And so this was the first time that all of these are coming together, and just great that we had the ability to bring it all together.
Right, and it perfectly. I should say for full disclosure, so I'm also recently been added to the Navigator Lighthouse Foundation board, which I'm very proud to be a part of. So it seems like this event really captures really the essence of the mission, right, for NLF in terms of breaking down these retail barriers for minority and women-owned companies,
Right.
which actually is a perfect segue for this video that just hot off the press, as I used to say, which I want to share with everybody here. So let me go ahead and do that right now.
The sound's not playing.
Oh, it's playing here. Well, hopefully you were able to hear that, but if not, we'll definitely have a link for the video in on the notes of the podcast. So thank you so much. Um, and actually, and I guess this is like a really interesting video because it does highlight a lot of the work that NLF does in terms of uh, doing these competitions and bringing together these companies that maybe are not getting that visibility. So I don't know if you want to just talk briefly about that as well.
Yeah, I think what we do is we really fast track some of the brands and we provide access. So one of our missions with Lighthouse Foundation is access. So just as background, I came from Albertsons. I was an SVP of merchandising at Albertsons, Southern California. So I understood how it worked from the other side of the desk. And then we started a brokerage. So for 11 years, my husband and I and the team we built represented brands, big and small, to thousands of retailers across the country. And from there, we realized we had relationships and we had access in the marketplace. Our company was bought 3 years ago. It was acquired by CA Fortune, which is a national sales and marketing agency. So I get to do what I was doing with Navigator on a national scale right now, and I'm leading the West for them. But what it has done is given me access to retailers, to brands, to marketing. How do you continue to bring all this together? And so it was really, really fun looking back at this because there's so many events out there that the emerging brands have never heard of, like the Western Association of Food Chains or the California Grocers Association. Well, we live those events, right? So for us, it was just opening up a path for those brands to come in and get that type of access with retailers.
Right, and it is notoriously difficult to get buyer access for a lot of these accounts. So it's incredible that you really opened the door for these brands. So really terrific. Wanted to switch over a little bit to Chirag a bit and talk
Mhm.
a bit, just a little background in terms of Mission Matters, which I should say I've been to a couple of your events in the past. I went to an event in the Arts District a couple of years ago, which was absolutely incredible. Just really the curation on these is really top notch, and I think obviously the event next week will be no different. And we also hosted a longevity conference, which was also
Mhm.
equally amazing. So tell us a little bit about Mission Matters and your how you function and how you what the secret sauce is essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. So been running Mission Matters for 10 years. We started in 2016 by accident. My co-founder, I used to own a marketing agency before this, and I owned a luxury magazine. My co-founder advertised in my publication, and then he was a client of mine. And so he published his own book in 2016, and then I helped him launch a podcast. I helped him manage social media, did PR for him, did a lot of things to build his personal brand as opposed to working on his company that he was running at the time. And by essentially helping him facilitate building up this brand, he just kept getting approached by other people who saw what he was doing. He was getting clients because of the work we were doing, and they kept asking him for advice and help to build their brand. So we kind of started consulting people, and then Mission Matter started by accident. My co-founder did a career change, left the finance industry after 15 years. I ended up merging my marketing agency into Mission Matters and been building this for the last decade. Fast forward today, our mission as a company is helping others identify their mission and helping them accomplish this. And we do it two ways. We run Mission Matters Agency and also Mission Matters Media. Think of it as the same company. It's just different sides of a coin, easiest way to explain it. Our agency really focuses on both personal branding and corporate branding. We architect strategy, figuring out what is your end goal, what's your end game, like what are you trying to accomplish once it's all said and done, and then we help you execute that. So we build out a roadmap, blueprint, plan of action, and then we then help you execute this. So we have a book publishing division, we have a podcast division, social media division, PR division, events division, where we help execute that strategy. We've had over 1,000 clients since we started the company. We've got maybe a couple hundred clients actively right now that we're working with, along with about 20 full-time staff to support this. And then our media side of the business is, we have a team of writers, podcasters, creators creating content for our platform. and we reach a couple million people a month through all the content we create. We also organize over 100 events that we put together throughout the year. I know, Rafael, you've been to a handful of these. And so it's something that we've done continuously to connect and bridge people. The way that we see this, especially with tech and AI, is that the world is changing, and events and COVID showed us this. And I think tech and AI are clearly showing us this, that people need to meet each other in person. Our specialty is really curating the rooms and bringing people that are like-minded. And so this conference that, when we partnered with Sabrina and the NLF, what we ultimately wanted to do was bring folks together that are part of the entire ecosystem in the CPG space. It's a really big vertical that we cover. And with Sabrina Allen's strength being, of course, the retail side, that's, for sure our weakness. We figured that we complement each other, us being a media platform and having lots of brands that are clients of ours, working with a variety of investors, and then also with media and influencers. We figured that we can kind of bring everyone that's involved in the entire supply chain of CPG into the same room and create content that they need to know to build, grow, scale their business. So anyway, that's Mission Matters, but then also kind of why we got involved in this event after all.
Fantastic. And then in terms of the conference itself, I mean, as an agency, Mission Matters, or part of what you do is working as an agent. Storytelling is so critical, right,
Mhm.
for today's CPG, emerging CPG brands, in terms of getting attention, getting engagement, getting conversion. What can participants of the conference look for in terms of how they might learn how to be most effective at kind of in this attention economy to be able to
Yeah.
kind of get that funnel attention into their brands.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought this up, right? You're right. We do live in an attention economy. Our goal is to create an intention economy. So the goal is, how do you create intent around what you're doing so you're maximizing your time, your energy, your dollars that you're spending to connect with people, right? To your point, there's a lot of AI that's used right now that creates really crap content. And we have an entire panel discussion on how do you earn your media? How do you get the attention of people that you should be connecting with, your consumers, right? Or your folks purchasing your product in this case. We have an entire dialogue just focused on how do you create earned media. We have a dialogue on how do you leverage and use paid media to then get the attention, doing e-commerce and all this paid marketing, and how do you leverage AI in your favor, so that you can kind of leverage it in what you're doing. Look, ultimately with our agency, to your point, it's all about building a personal brand. I think that's probably the most surefire way to stand out, because people resonate with people, right? If you have a product that you built and you're building, actually, one of our panelists, she created an entire product that really combats microplastics. I don't think a lot of people know this, but tea bags, it's one of the biggest commodities, right? A lot of people drink tea out of those bags. It produces billions of microplastics the moment that you put it in hot water and when it breaks down. And it's probably, I think it is the number one, if not number two, most biggest pollutant of microplastics in people. She created a product, a CPG product, that's a tea strip. It dissolves right away in water, and there's no pollutants that are created because of this, right? So that's essentially her creating a story, her being the face of this, because it was something that she's been dealing with and she's been seeing, as a mom, right? Her child drinks tea too. And so she created something. And those are the types of stories that are going to stand out and that we want to ultimately share for what other CPG brands can share to get their message across.
Fantastic. Yeah. So it's just, making it relevant, making it personal, making it
Mhm.
American. So I love that. So Sabrina, by the way, and as you say, we're going to have on the podcast notes, we're going to have a flyer for the entire, for a link to the event, so where you can register, but also just a flyer for the event as well, so that you can have easy access to. So I wanted to ask you a quick question, which is this: eventually, for any founder, emerging brand that's walking into Verizon's 5G Labs on June 25th. So what does a successful day look like? What are the buyers, the investors actually looking for right now, do you think?
I think the number one thing you could do is network. I mean, I would come there with the purpose of networking, no matter where you are, who you are, if you're a brand, if you're even a founder, like this is a place to network because this is where it all is going to converge. And so my thoughts are keeping it very open in terms of who you want to engage with. So just as far as how it's going to look that day, some of the brands that some of the entrepreneurs that are there will actually have booths, and they will be sampling and ready with their elevator pitch at the booth and showcasing it both to consumers, to shoppers, to retailers. Then we have a couple of retailer panels, like we're kicking off the day with a fireside chat with the president of Ralph's Grocery Company, which is a Kroger company. Number one conventional grocer in the country is Kroger. So we've got the president of Ralph's coming in and talking to us. And when I say be open, it's not just her coming in and talking about Ralph's, right? It's her coming in and talking about the industry and how do you engage this industry? How do you build your board of directors? How do you build your personal board of directors? If you're going to grow this brand, you have to make sure you're surrounded by the right people, you're going to the right events. And oh, yes, by the way, come sell to me at Ralph's, right? But the conversation is broader than just doing business at Ralph's. But that's an example of how we're trying to go a little bit different than normal. And then we've got a panel later that morning from a number of retailers. So we have the VP of merchandising from Gelson's. We've got the chief marketing officer from Heritage Grocers. Here in Southern California, there's Cardenas stores. If you ever seen a Cardenas, that's who Heritage Grocers owns them. They own Tony's in Chicago and I think Fiesta Foods in Texas. Well, their chief marketing officer or chief experience officer will be with us as well. And then we'll have a director of sales from Keurig Dr. Pepper, who's a big brand, but what is she up against selling to these guys that are going to be on stage with her, right? And what are the learnings that we can get from how she even brings her story to the table? Because the big brands have a story to tell too, right? So there's a lot we can learn from them. So that's just an example of some of the morning spots. I will also say there's some little breakout rooms that are there, like little meeting rooms. So if there's a funder that's like, I want to invest or I want to find out more, there's spots to go talk. If there's someone from Gelson's and he wants to go have a conversation with one of the brands. So when I say networking, it's like networking on steroids. And this location will blow you away because there's so many rooms all over this building for all of this to happen, right? It's going to be a lot of buzz, a lot of fun, a lot of energy.
That's fantastic. And one of the things that I'm really looking forward to just engaging on too is just this aspect of retail media, and particularly how, especially some of the larger chains are really leaning into retail media, whether it's directly through their own channels or third party or programmatically. And this is not just in their e-commerce portals, but also brick and mortar, and how they're really starting to use those types of spaces, right, to pattern interrupt folks and give them more and help to have more consideration for products. So, which I think can be really powerful for newer brands, because otherwise, a lot of the purchases that people make are so habitual. So if you have something that will at least interrupt your pattern, right, your that first moment of truth when you're actually at the store, that can be really impactful. So
Yeah,
I'll be raising my hand.
awesome.
Great.
Love that.
Great. So, Chirag, the other topic that I wanted to bring up too, and of course, this is one that I pretty much bring up in every podcast these days, is just AI, right? So, and AI is a buzzword, but it's also it can be hugely impactful, right? For especially for emerging brands that can use it to kind of leverage their growth. So, what do you see in terms of your experience, or, working with even a lot of different verticals? What have you seen in terms of AI and innovation in this space that can be applicable to some of these CPG companies, both large and small?
Yeah. Look, across the board, AI is changing the game, like in every aspect of the business. I would say no question marketing, right? You're looking at marketing, paid advertising with how all that's done. From not, you could take a couple of photos of your product, use AI, whether it's Midjourney or ChatGPT or whatever platform you use, to then create all the creatives, right? So you can now create ad creatives with video, with photos. So it cuts down the cost that you would normally have to spend to do like a full lifestyle shoot for that content, right? Whether it's for a brochure or for your website or just for like the bottling or whatever it might be, right? That's one aspect. Then the second part of it is in actually creating the social media content around this, right? So organic social media content, the ad creative, whether you're doing paid marketing, paid advertising, right? So that helps and assists. AI can kind of do a lot of work for you, mention all of the custom, like reducing your customer acquisition costs, figuring out what, like if you're running 10 different ads at the same time, your AI will tell you what's the best performing ad that exists. And so it's reducing the amount of time and money that you would have to spend to run these experiments. Yeah, this is all the content that we're going to be sharing, and these are all the experts that we're bringing on to these panels and discussions, sharing what are all these cool AI, new AI, what's the newest AI tools that exist, right? There's like a new one that launches almost every single day, and all of these tools are integrating. I think most recently Facebook just announced itself that they're basically integrating their own AI right into Claude or right into OpenAI or whatever all the AI tools are. And so now it's telling you what the best performing ads are. You don't even have to use third-party tools anymore. But I don't know how many people actually even know that this exists because they just got announced, right? And so the goal is, how do you make all of these AI tools function and integrate them into your business? And so what are they? How do you leverage them? How do you use them? How is it reducing costs? We know it is. We know it's reducing costs and time and energy that you have to spend to do things. Like look at all these big companies that are laying off employees because, the AI tools are able to do this. We're not even talking about agentic AI here, how agentic AI can come into play and help automate these things that you're doing. But, there's a lot of ways for you to analyze data and be able to leverage it. And so that's really, we have like I think three different discussions on AI, how it's used in organic media, content creation and marketing. How do you build a storyline and share this across the board? And then on the paid marketing side. So we've got several discussions that'll be, and experts that we're bringing in to share this content.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I think even more kind of down home, right? I mean, you look at the some of the walled garden social companies, right? Like they're have already been doing a lot of this with whether it's Performance Max or Advantage Plus, and they're a lot of this essentially kind of almost making these walled gardens be kind of programmatically self actualizing, right? So you can get, I think now what I last heard is that if you're for Meta use, especially large companies that are using Meta, they're on average, these companies are taking about maybe 20 to 30% of their total spend and making it just automated. So that means just not just A/B test, but just a
Build
really
out the whole funnel. Yeah.
exponential level of optimization, both creatively in terms of placement. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think this will just kind of keep growing. So yeah, very exciting. Great to hear that that's going to be part of the discussion. And actually, you already mentioned what I might kind of hinted to. So one of the next questions that I have, which is about metrics. You mentioned cost of acquisition, right? So what I was going to ask you is like, what is like the number one, or what are like the top three, or either what are like the top metrics or milestones that these emerging CPG brands need to prove out to their VCs and angels to be able to be relevant and be kind of in the best footing in terms of getting new rounds of funding.
Number one, sales. I don't think that's ever changed, right? That's universal from Stone Ages to now. Sales, right? Sales moves everything. Sales determines everything. Newer things though that I believe matters now that VCs are looking at is how much engagement and how much digital social media growth are you getting on your platforms, and how much are people talking about what you're doing or what your product does rather, or that people are purchasing the product and talking about it. Because you can have viral products that have gone, majorly viral, right? And then now VCs are seeing, oh wow, there's already traction here, we should turn this into a business. And so there's viability there too. So I would say number two would probably be engagement and growth of your social and your digital and how people are consuming with it. And third, I would say it's community, right? Like a lot of this comes down to just like, how are you building a community? Because you don't want to create another commodity product. It's all about the brand at the end of the day, right? There needs to be brand cohesion because anyone can go in and launch. I mean, right? Look how easy AI and all of these digital tools are making it, where you can go build a brand, right? And you can just go launch it. And if you're only strictly basing your product off of price, but there's no brand loyalty to what you're doing, and you're like anyone can go online on Amazon and just start shipping and flipping products. But if you don't have a brand around what you're doing, then the venture is not going to look at what you're doing, right?
You don't really have a
Essentially,
moat
that's the reason why you
if you
need
have
to
protection.
build a brand to get people stuck and glued to what you're doing. That's the cult, right? That's the culture that you're building, and that's what will allow you to stand the test of time beyond this. So some of these things are a little bit more old school, but that evolution to this would be just the digital, the engagement, and the virality factor that could take place. Even if you don't even have to be like viral, maybe they're just steady, ongoing growth, and it shows that hey, you're building this brand, and there's a need for it, right? So from
Great.
the vantage point of VCs, that's essentially what we're seeing.
Great. No, no, that totally makes sense. Sabrina, so another part of this conference that's very unique is that you have the money people, and then you have the retail side, and then you also have the CPGs, the emerging CPGs themselves. So why is that? Why do we have especially like because you have both the capital and the retail side. How is that going to be helpful, I think, in terms of driving velocity, and how should emerging brands that are attending uh, kind of approach these conversations?
I mean, it's starting to happen a little bit more. I'm not saying we're the first to the market with this, but as I mentioned before, as we started the Lighthouse Foundation, or even the brands that I work with CA Fortune, um, you can have a great brand, you can have a great recipe, you can have great packaging, you could actually have great marketing. If you don't have the money to actually get it on shelf, to produce, to pay for the marketing, then you just have a good idea, right? And so, the reason it's so important to bring these all together is imagine if you're an angel investor sitting in that audience, not only did you get to see this great brand that you think you might want to invest in, now you're getting to hear from the retailer that says what they're looking for.
Yeah,
Because it's got to go onto their shelves, right? It's got to sell off of their shelves. Um, and then you have the great brands with the great recipes and the great stories, and they need to hear from the retailers. What are they looking for? They need to hear from investors. What are they looking for? There's a lot of decisions that need to be made. And sometimes you jump in so fast because you feel like, great, so and so let me in. I'm getting in their store. I'm getting in 1,000 stores. And I'll just, for purposes of where we are right now, say it's the oh shoot moment. We don't call it that, but that's what it is. Like, oh shoot, I got into Walmart. And then a week later, you're like, oh shoot, I got into Walmart. Right.
right.
Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to produce that? And so let's bring everybody together. Like, let's just have this dialogue together and we can all benefit each other. The investors can make a better decision, retailers can make a better decision, CPG brands can make a better decision. That's
Right.
what we're there for.
Yeah, I mean, that dovetails exactly to what I was going to ask, which is, we talk about this idea of this valley of death for emerging brands, which is like the stretch from like having like local boy does good, right? Level of success to then scaling out nationally, like you said, in the case of a Walmart or Costco or whatever, it might be. And then they just, run out of working capital, right? Unless they get some either debt or equity funding to be able to facilitate that. So this is something that obviously, Navigator Lighthouse Fund is very aware of. What kind of conversations, what kind of panels are going to be going on that will talk about how you kind of scale up, at that point?
Yeah. I'll probably let Chirag jump in on this part because we've got like the retailer panels and like I said, I mentioned before, Gelson's and Heritage and they're going to be talking about what they're looking for, what's unique, what's different, how do they look at innovation? How do you show up today versus if you had launched this brand 10 years ago, right? It's
Mhm.
very different how you show up. And so they'll be having those conversations. Like I said, Kendra Doyle from Ralph's will be talking about um, who's in your corner, right? And how do you make sure you've got the right partnerships, the right people behind you? Chirag, you want to talk about some of the
Yeah.
investors in that panel?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple panels really focused on this. One that's basically exited founders, how they built, grew, scaled, and exited their company and all of the things that they had to watch out for, right? To your point, you're doing well, you've got this D2C brand, right? CPG, whatever industry, whatever vertical it's in, and you've done 1 million plus in sales just going direct to market. And you bootstrap this whole business. So maybe you didn't even raise outside capital. And then boom, a Walmart comes across because you're maybe showcasing at an event like ours, right? And then you meet someone that's like, hey, we want to test drive you. Let's get you into 20 stores locally, and cool, you have the budgets for it, and then it does well, and then all of a sudden you've got a purchase order for 500 or 1,000 stores, and uh-oh, you don't have that cash flow anymore, right? You got to plan for this. And so we have an entire investor panel with 4 different VCs, several of them actually, who built CPG brands, sold them, became investors, learned all of the issues that they faced, and essentially provide the blueprint essentially for how do you prepare for that, or does it even make sense to have that on your horizon if you're not ready for it, right? Like sometimes you might be better off just saying no from day one, because Sabrina could, I know, vet this too, but I've heard the biggest mistake that a lot of brands make is they'll get into retail, realize they don't have the cash flow and they can't afford it, and then boom, they're off the shelf, and now it's an uphill battle to get back on later when you are ready for it. And so these are all the things that you want to plan for. So we have a couple panels. One is exited founders and what they've learned to grow, build, scale their business and sell it. And then investors to kind of showcase, hey, this is what you need to be prepared for. Number one, to be investor ready. And then secondly, what and how do you leverage that capital to grow? Because once you go down the investor route, you're always raising capital. And in CPG is one of those industries where you really never stop raising money. Really, the only time you win is when you sell the company, or if you're fortunate and you're one of the 1 in 10,000 or whatever the percentage is, that becomes the next Coca-Cola or Red Bull, right? But there's only a handful of those types of companies that are a very small percentage in CPG at least. So we have panels that will highlight, and address those, from how do you get into retail and what do you prepare for in order to scale at that magnitude.
So, one of our board members for Lighthouse Foundation, Steve Takeda, always tells me this, and he always has these Steve-isms, but it's not the questions you ask, it's the questions you don't ask. And that is what makes or breaks you. Well, until you come to events like this, you don't even know what you don't know.
Hmm.
Right. And so hopefully we have people that walk away, that learn, that pivot, or that get confirmation that they're going down the right path. But if you don't know what not to ask, this is the place to come and just learn everything from all different angles in one day.
Yeah, this is a great point, and Chirag, you mentioned this issue of some of the mistakes that these emerging companies make in terms of managing their capital, their cash flow, right, as they scale out. That can also happen on the media side, right? So, like if you have you have a $50,000 marketing budget, $100,000 marketing budget, now you need to scale it up to $1 million, and before you were getting a return on ad spend of like 5 or 6, and now all of a sudden now it kind of starts to drop off, and you're getting really marginal returns, and your CAC is going up, and your lifetime customer value may not be moving
Hmm.
positively either. So there's so many things that I think these companies need to be aware of as they grow. So I think this conference is going to be absolutely key for building more of that awareness for them.
Exactly.
So one of the, I mean, the theme of the conference is convergence, right? So we talked about, like, you have founders, you have creators, you have agencies, you have investors. So what is like the one major like takeaway or mind shift that every attendee should kind of walk away with after this conference, you think? And this is for both of you.
Well, first of all, I think it's expanding your network is something that I would love to see people walk away with, is um, a newfound industry partner or leader or mentor, because it is lonely starting a brand,
Hmm.
right? And you're not going to go to your family and friends if they've never started a brand. So who do you go to, right? And so there's this community of other people that are doing it right now, that are going to be there, that have done it and sold, that are going to be there. If I'm learning, these are the people that I want to learn from. And so that's the biggest thing takeaway for me, is just what is that new relationship, and then what's that new wisdom. We have folks, and I know a couple people that are on a couple of these panels are like, okay, what's the action plan, what's the game plan? I want to make sure people are walking away with it. Well, that's going to come from you, right? Because everybody's on a different spot in their journey, whether it's a VC looking for their next brand they want to invest in, or a brand looking for something, or a retailer looking for a brand there that's not on their shelf right now and they want to bring it in. So that vantage point is very different from everybody, but hopefully everybody walks away with what that game plan is for them,
Can I also
and
Yeah.
just
how do
jump
they
in on
go
that real
back in
quick?
action on it.
You mentioned this is really interesting because this doesn't have to be just purely a personal journey. I mean, I think building community around this and
Yep.
having a cohort of people that can help you not just at the conference but after. So it's like both the people that you meet at the conference, but then also, I mean, obviously, shameless plug here for Navigator. I mean, this is essentially what these are. Like these are, the people that join Navigator are these startup founders, and they
Yeah.
work with each other. A lot of them are in different verticals, right? So they're not necessarily directly competing against each other. So they are actually quite helpful to each other. And by all these events, they are able to kind of build that community and learn, kind of avoid costly mistakes just by having that cohort there. So, there's a lot of this just happens from, fellow founders.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying. When we kick it off that morning, that's the first fireside chat, is building that community, and you're going to hear it from one of the top retailers in the country. So that's very, very important.
Great. Sure. What's the main takeaway you think that they should take?
Uh, Honestly, I think Sabrina nailed most of it. Like everyone's in a different journey. And number one, what the stakeholder, right? Like number one, there's like 4 or 5 different stakeholders in the room, and they all have different agendas. So, brand trying to raise capital, investor trying to find the next deal, media or influencer that's in the room trying to attach their brand, their personal brand to a brand, to one of these CPG consumer brands, right? Because they want to partner up, or maybe they're interested in launching, or maybe someone there that's maybe they're a corporate employee or they're working for a large brand and they're interested in launching their own. They want to be an entrepreneur, right? Everyone kind of has their own agenda. So I would say before you come to the conference, figure out what it is that you're looking for so that it'll be easier for you to then find and navigate the room to find what you're looking for, right? So come in with, like, create a purpose as to why you're coming and what the goals are that you're looking to achieve. Because everyone that you need to meet in the room, or that you need to create a successful CPG brand, is there. So, just come in with the purpose and the goal so that then you can meet and connect with those people specifically, because we're gonna have several hundred people in the room. So
advice.
This is probably a question, Chirag. When you go out and register, are you able to see the other registrants?
Uh, we don't you can't see the other registrations, but you
Okay,
see
got
all
it.
the speakers and everyone else. Usually just keeping private information.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure if they're able to see who's there, but I would say follow, us on socials and all of that because some of the speakers were announcing who they are, right? And when I
Yeah.
go to a conference, especially if I don't know anybody else there, I always like to see, well, who's speaking or who else is attending, and I have my hit list. Like I've always wanted to know about X,
Yeah.
how can I do this? Or partnerships, right? I'm coming in, I've got a snack, and there's Dr. Pepper in the room,
Yeah.
right?
We do have all the
Can you go
speakers.
co-market with them, right? So there's just different ideas.
Yeah, we have all the speakers that are confirmed. We have the agenda laid out on the ticketing site, and we have the names of the speakers and the
Yep.
brands they represent. That's all visible.
Yeah. So that's what I would tell everybody. Look at that and have a game plan. Kind of look at who's speaking, whether they're speaking about, what are the questions you have, and leverage that time. And we're all busy, right? So to take a day out of anybody's schedule, whether regardless of what area of the business you're in, that's a big investment of time. So use it, be ready, and get your networking shoes on.
That's right. So, and of course, it's a good segue, and just in terms of the logistics. So again, the conference is next Thursday, June 25th. It runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Verizon's 5G Labs in Playa Vista. And then, so Chirag, where should people get secure the tickets and just find out more about information about the event?
Yeah, we have it's all on the ticketing platform on Luma, and I'm sure we could share this right after once we're wrapped up here and when we do all the social media posts and promotion of the event.
We'll put it
Yeah,
in under the notes. Absolutely.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. That would be the easiest way for folks to get the tickets. But we are heavily promoting this on all of our social channels and everywhere else.
Yeah, and also there, if you go on Navigator Lighthouse Foundation.org, go to events, you'll see the flyer come up, and you can actually register right from there too.
Mhm.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Um, all right. Well, I mean, so again, just to recap, I mean, so if you are an emerging brand, an investor looking for the next kind of breakout consumer product, or an industry executive looking to see where the market is heading, so June 25th is a must-go event. So Chirag, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining me today on Working Media. And I wanted also, just for our listeners, I wanted to thank you for listening. We're starting to do the podcast as also as a video, not just audio. We will have the event link as well, like I said, under the notes on YouTube, and then on the other platforms as well as QR codes and full details. So, and again, remember to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen or watch, and share the podcast with other marketers. So until next time, I am Rafael Bracero. Keep building, and I will see you in the trenches. Fight on.
Right on. Thank you.